Red Wing Software is excited to announce the release of version 20 of CenterPoint. This video will highlight some of the changes that you'll see in this version. For the accounting updates, I'll be using CenterPoint Accounting, but if you happen to have CenterPoint for Agriculture or CenterPoint Fund, the steps will remain the same. For the payroll features, I will be using standalone payroll. This video will only cover the major features of version 20. For a full list of features, you can go to Help in either CenterPoint Help or CenterPoint Payroll Help. When either help screen comes up, you can click on the What's New button to find a full list of features in this version. Let's start with the new features added to accounting first. In version 20, we have enhanced the bank or financial institution transaction import. The new streamline process allows you to seamlessly import transactions from most financial institutions into CenterPoint using an integration with Plaid rather than the previous manual process. As you can see, I already have a financial institution in my database. To add a financial institution, you would click Add. That will take you into an integration with Plaid, where you will be able to select your financial institutions and will be prompted for your login credentials for that account. Once your financial institution is added, you'll have a list of accounts that you have at that financial institution, and you can decide which ones you want to be able to import transactions for. I've only selected my checking account. Once the financial institution is set up, bringing in transactions is simple. You can click the Review button, select which account you want to import the transactions for and the time period of transactions that you want to import, and then click Import. Through the use of rules, you can set up certain transactions so that they are automatically mapped to a particular vendor or customer and also mapped to a particular account in CenterPoint. For those, it will not say user action required, and to add them to CenterPoint is as simple as putting a check mark in the box and clicking Apply. For transactions that you want to exclude because maybe you've entered them in a different way, you can select them and click the Exclude. For other transactions where it says that a user action is required, you can click the Add button. You can select a vendor or customer from your names, and then select what account you want to post that transaction to. Or if there are open invoices to that vendor or customer, you can apply that amount to those open invoices and then click Add, and that'll add them to CenterPoint. If you have multiple companies or multiple funds in your database, you may already be familiar with the fact that you can run an income statement with those companies in a side-by-side format. We've now added the ability to do that side-by-side format on the balance sheet. So I'm going to select my balance sheet, and I'm going to select which companies I'm going to run that balance sheet for, and then I'm going to preview it. At first, I'm going to get just one column that adds the two companies together, but I can go over to the Columns tab into Available, and we've now added a feature that allows you to separate the companies into different columns. I can first choose Company 1 and say that I want the book value for Company 1, and I'm going to then choose Company 2 and say that I want the book value for Company 2. Since I only have two companies, I'm done, but you can continue for more companies. Then I'm going to click Refresh, and you see that I have those companies in separate columns. Now, if I want to, I could reorganize the order of those, or I could even eliminate this total column by going back to the Columns tab and going to the Selected Columns tab. On the Preferences screen that you can get to by going to File and Preferences, we've added a search box which helps you to find the preferences that you're looking for. I'm going to type aging into mine, and that's going to bring up a preference that is new in CenterPoint version 20. But it's found underneath Customer Invoices, and it's called Aging Periods. This preference will allow you to customize the aging periods that you see on your aging reports and on your billing statements rather than accepting the default aging periods that Red Wing set up. So I can come in and customize these aging periods to be what I need them to be for my organization. Click Save, and then I will see that change on either my aging reports or my billing statements. So I'm going to go to my billing statements, and I'm just going to preview my billing statement. And at the bottom of the statement, you'll see the new aging periods rather than the previous aging periods. We've added a new field on the General tab of either the setup of vendors or the setup of names called Payment Sequence. For every bank account, you may have multiple sequences because you may have different kinds of transactions coming out of it. You see that I have several different sequences. Rather than accepting the sequence that is the default for the transaction screen, I can identify what sequence I want to use with this vendor, and it will default that. We can test that out by going to the Payments screen underneath Processes, Purchases, and Payments. The default sequence right now is the one called Payments. As soon as I choose that vendor that I was working on, who was Summit Water, it automatically changes the sequence to the one set on the vendor detail. On the General tab of the setup of customers, vendors, names, or employees, there has always been an additional notes button found next to the active status button in the lower right. We've now moved that button to the very bottom line next to the buttons where you can attach documents to this record. By placing the additional notes button down here, we can now access that additional notes button from any of the tabs within that setup screen rather than just the General tab. I'm now in Transaction Search where I've pulled up a vendor invoice that already has payments applied to it. I'm going to edit that invoice by double-clicking on it. When the invoice comes up, I have a yellow bar at the top saying that I can't make changes to it because payments have been applied and the appropriate buttons have been disabled. What we've added in version 20 is a button at the top right that allows you to review any payments that are already applied to this invoice by clicking the Review Payments button. From here, we can either view the payment or edit the payment by double-clicking on it or highlighting it and clicking the Edit button. Version 19 of CenterPoint added the ability to calculate better payroll liability due dates by using payment terms. Version 20 enhances those payment terms. When setting up a payment term now in CenterPoint, you can select which months you want that payment term to be good for. This allows you to better set up payment terms that are for quarterly payments and/or annual payments. Another enhancement allowing for better payroll liability due dates is the ability to edit the payroll liability due date after a payroll has been posted. We can do this from the Pay Invoices Due screen by opening up a vendor's invoices and then right-clicking on an invoice and choosing to change the due date. That will allow us to just type in a new due date for that liability. In version 20, we have added the ability to assign payment schedules or schedules to earnings that an employee receives. You can see here that we've created an earning called a meal stipend, which we give to our employees only on the first pay period of the month. Unless you select another schedule, each earning would automatically go to this all period schedule where it would get calculated in every pay period. So it's only going to have a different schedule if you assign it to a different schedule. I've assigned this earning to my employees, so let's see how that works by going to Processes and Pay Employees. I'm going to start a new pay run. In this pay run, I've selected that my pay period is the first pay period of the month. And I'm just going to move over one of my employees that has that earning. And now when I go to the Enter Pay tab, you'll see that the meal stipend is selected and calculated because it's the first pay period of the month. If I go back to the Select Employees tab and change that pay period to the second pay period of the month, and go back to the Enter Pay tab, you'll see that the meal stipend has been removed because it's not the first pay period of the month. In the past, it has caused some confusion to change either the rates on an earning deduction or benefit, or even one of the accounts on the setup of those items, because it didn't update the employer record when you did that. We've now changed that so that when you make a change on one of those, it'll also ask you to update the employer record. We can test this out by going to Setup, Payroll Details, and to Earnings. I'm going to edit an existing earning, and we're just going to change the rate that's on that earning. So I'm going to change this to $26 and hit Tab, and then I'm going to click Save. When I click Save, it asks me if I want to update the employer record. I'm going to say yes, and then it's going to tell me which fields it's going to update the employer record with, and I can click Next, and then it's complete, and my employer record is updated as well. Finding the correct tax forms has always been a little time-consuming just because the list is fairly long, and you only use a few of those forms. So we've added the ability to create a favorites list. All you have to do is select the form that you want to add to the favorites list, such as the W-2, and then I can click on the button to the right and choose to add it to favorites. Now when I bring up that list of forms, my favorites will be at the top and the remaining reports will be after that, so it's easier to find the ones I need. If you are enrolled in any of our Red Wing web services, the new consolidated employee portal menu allows you single point access to all of your payroll web services and settings. If I click on the employee portal menu, there is an option for settings. On this settings screen, you can register all of your payroll web services in one spot, and on the appropriate tabs, you can manage the settings for each of those services. Under employee portal, there is a selection to enroll employees. On this screen, you'll be able to select how you want to communicate that enrollment to these employees, and then select which employees you wish to enroll. For the administration of these services under Employee Portal, for pay advices, you're able to publish pay advices and remove advices. For the time clock, you're able to import time and able to get to the time clock groups setup screen. And under self-serve, you can review pending changes that are made in the self-serve section of the employee portal. On the employee setup screen, we have also consolidated the tabs for these services into a single tab called the Portal tab. There you can select which services the employee is enrolled in. If you need to invite them to enroll in those services, you can do so from this screen, and you can manage any time clock settings necessary for the employee on the lower portion of the screen. That is just a small sample of the version 20 enhancements that were made. If you have suggestions for a future release of CenterPoint, you can send those suggestions to suggestions@redwingsoftware.com, or you can call us at 1-800-732-9464.